going on, guys? Welcome into Locky Top Sports. Episode 16 coming at you. We got a little interesting third block down there. We got Naveen and the Michigan Man coming live from Austin, Tejas this morning. All right. So that's kind of cool to see those two together. We got Andrew with us this morning, and of course myself, Josh, coming at you. We're gonna do some things a little different. Start off with some of our recaps. We had a great weekend of golf last week with the Masters, and obviously UFC 300 was an amazing event. A lot of good action there. So I'm going to start with that Masters recap. Andrew, I'm going to bring you in on this first. Scotty Scheffler, man, what a performance, shooting 11 under for the whole weekend and winning his second Masters in 3 years. What are your thoughts on his performance? And then just what was your biggest takeaways from the Masters last week?
Yeah. So Scotty Scheffler, as we sort of predicted, took the green jacket. Surprising that he just kind of like ran away with it in the on Sunday. While everyone else sort of struggled. A lot of mistakes, penalties, dumping the balls into the water and stuff like that. So, it was really just kind of like a eye-opening to see some kind of dominance like that. I feel like we haven't seen that in professional golf for a long time. He's won 4 of the 5 tournaments that he started, or something like that, including the Master. And the one that he didn't win, he came in second place. So it was like as red hot as you could get. Obviously, plus 450 was not a great odds to bet on. But then again, just considering his form, I guess like that was sort of inevitable. Without that, Homa would sort of fade away without the experience. So that was also somewhat surprising. But I guess now that he's got a sort of a top 5, top 10 finish at a major, maybe this is his breakaway point that he gets the confidence and go out there and get it done. And then like for everyone else, I feel like like Morikawa had a little surge on Saturday, kind of faded away on Sunday, but again, top 5 finish, top 3 finish is pretty good. He's he's had a good Masters like 3 years in a row now, and I think he's always gonna be in the mix. But overall, I feel like a lot of the picks that we had for top 5, top 10, as well as the winner kind of came through. So it was a nice, profitable weekend for the crew, which is always good to see.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, I can't think of a time that we've had such a a dominant performance with our picks as we had last week. So if you tuned into our show last week, I mean, and took what we were saying to the bank, or at least to your bookie, you definitely made some money last week. So I think we ran off 8-1 last week. Naveen, was it 8-1 all of our picks?
Yeah, it was 8-1 in UFC,
and then I called Scotty winning it 2 weeks ago. So what, 9-1 overall, and then 10-1 really if you count the sweep of LSU. But we'll get into that later.
Tiger making the cut also said that was the biggest lock ever.
Yeah, man. And, so getting premium picks when you tune into us, guys. So for all of our viewers out there, share it with your friends, man. If you guys are making any type of coin, let us know. We want to share this with everybody. So my biggest takeaway from the Masters was, I think it was a huge indictment that Scotty Scheffler is the number 1 player in the world right now. That's not debatable. And then just the weather that impacted the first couple of days of the tournament, to see those players kind of withstand the storm, figuratively and literally, and not get shook by that. I know that Naveen's favorite golfer kind of faded there at the end. You want to talk about his 3D golf clubs or anything, Naveen?
Yeah, I think he needed to go 4D on this one because his 3D shit did not work. His mentality broke down and he got into that huge head of his and he kind of collapsed. But it is a hard tournament. I do want to ask you guys, like, coming from a casual perspective, I'm definitely casual on golf. Not on other things, but does it make it equally entertaining when you have Sunday where it's a huge lead? Like, for example, I was asking Andy, when should I tune in? So he's like, all right, you should probably tune in around the 9th hole. And I tuned in, and it was great when we had that 3-way tie at -6, right? And then 45 minutes later, it's a three-hole lead. Like, do you stick it out to see him actually host the trophy? Or, do you kind of tune out? Like, does it get a little bit boring when it's too much of a lead?
Yeah, certainly. I think like it's always exciting to see the close race. I would say just because also like golf is such a like the way scoring works, right? Like someone might get a birdie here and chase you, and then the guy in the lead might get like a double bogey or some shit, and all of a sudden it flips. So I feel like the tight race is great. I would say, I mean, like if you like the player that's leading, if you're rooting for him, I mean, it's obviously great, seeing the team or the player that you're cheering for out there just crushing it. But I think just generally speaking, especially for casual viewers, and I mean, like I think this applies to any sport really. Like you want to kind of see a close game, you don't want to see a blowout. So
yeah, I think, but I think in this Masters, especially with the way the course played over the last couple of days, I think like if you probably weren't sure that anybody is going to win it anyway until like the trophy was actually lifted, or until the last couple of holes, because it was so easy to get a double or even a triple on any random hole and then just completely fall off from that point on. We saw pretty much almost every player go through that, even Scotty Scheffler actually, right? On Saturday, right? Like you double bogey a hole, then you bogey again, right? You miss a couple putts you should be making, and all of a sudden, you drop 3-4 positions in the rankings. I mean, like that's what happened to Morikawa too, right? He was tied up, and then the 2 shots in the water, right? And boom, there you go, right? So like he was right there to compete, and then your confidence changes at that point. So you're like, you might not be able to hit the right shot or go for the right thing after you have put yourself in a hole, right? And it's interesting because I think like the way like Scheffler played, right, is you get to like a good position on Saturday, even if you're tied up or whatever, but you have to make sure you don't make mistakes. Like in this Masters, like what was really surprising to me is how incredibly difficult this course was. And it literally made pros look like average guys on the course, right? They were missing left and right, hitting like in the water. Every, chip, and if you don't chip it perfectly, it rolls right off God knows where. So, just getting par there, right, is incredibly hard. So I think Masters, because of the difficulty of the course, I think even being upset, being up like 4 or 5 strokes on anybody doesn't mean much, right? Because this guy can, get a birdie next hole and you double bogey and boom, you're tied up. So I think in this Masters there was definitely more to watch, and I think it was pretty interesting, competitive in the end. Interesting about the Aberg guy, right? Am I pronouncing correctly? Aberg?
Yeah.
Aberg?
Yeah.
Really interesting, right? Like I think that was I really hope I'm really glad.
He kind of came out of nowhere, man.
Came out of nowhere, right? Very, very interesting player. I was rooting for him all weekend, and I think last 2 days, right? He had like one of the best performances both on Saturday and on Sunday. So you never know, right? I mean, if he had a bit of a better day early in the week, he finished second, but he could have given Scotty a bit of a sweat.
He actually had the best score on Friday. I think I called it out when I was talking about Morikawa. that he and Oberg and Morikawa had the best scores on Friday despite the wind, and that just kind of like I feel like was like a foreshadowing. Like, okay, this guy's had like 3 under in like crazy wind and shit, like, and now he's confident because he's in top 5 to start the Saturday, and he's already like 6 under or whatever, and from that point, I mean it's all the mental game too. I feel like maybe once Scheffler started building like a 3-shot lead, everybody else is just kind of like, well, okay, like I'm just gonna like make sure I make 1.7 million instead of 1.1 million by not missing a putt, because golf is just like tennis where your missed putt's gonna cost you like $800,000. So it's a different kind of pressure, I'm sure. But I guess I can kind of see how like some players, once they're kind of like realistically away from the contention, they just sort of like relax a little bit more, and it's like free roll. Like, okay,
yeah. All right.
Sorry, I'm trying to get a kid out of here.
But I'm interested to see this guy, what he does, because like I didn't know anything about him. Turned pro last year. Second place in the Masters. A very difficult Masters, in my opinion. I don't know. A lot of people have different opinions, I think, about it. But I definitely enjoyed watching it all the way. So, I mean, maybe that's the new, dark horse to keep an eye out.
Yeah. Like you said, like I think there was because like some on those years when the weather is nice, like you see people having like 7 under for the day, 8 under for the day, like everything's just straight drive, chip. But this one's like the wind. Once the wind picks it up, it's like left and right into the water, into the bunker. So a little bit more relatable, for us, I'm sure.
Do we think this was Tiger's last major?
I don't think it was his. I don't think it was his last major. I think he'll continue to kind of limp through some cuts, all pun intended. He is launching his new Sunday Red brand. Coming up in 3 weeks. So I think for whatever that's worth, he's going to try to pub that and try to make some tournaments and obviously continue to make cuts. I mean, I know he came in dead last, but he still made the cut, and I mean, what that put him in 60th place, but he's still Tiger. He's a peak competitor. I think obviously the opportunity for him to win a Masters tournament or a major tournament is probably way back in the rearview mirror. Like, he's definitely sunsetting this part of his career. But I still think he's going to be around for a little bit, and there's still a demand for him. So
yeah, I mean, Phil Mickelson won a major after turning 50, so Tiger's got a few more years, and Augusta's just very like hilly, and I feel like it doesn't really show in some of the broadcast angle, but then when they like zoom out and you see, how much of a hill that is, and I think that's that really probably bothers him, with the leg injury after he flipped the car and shit. So like, he's good enough to make the cut because he's played there so many times. He probably knows the course better than anyone. But then, day 3 and day 4 is when you just you can just tell he doesn't have the leg in him, and it's probably why he just crashed on Saturday, Sunday. And I think like even a couple of years ago, right? Like he made the cut and then boom, like next day he like had to withdraw. So realistically, he's done competing at Augusta just because of the terrains. But maybe if one of those majors are on a relatively flat course that's not too much to hike on, could have a chance.
Yeah. So let's kind of shift gears with the golf talk here, and let's talk about the RBC Heritage. Your boy Morikawa, Andrew, is tied for first right now, going into the third round. Do you see him kind of taking advantage of the momentum that he had last week in the Masters to continue to play strong? Do you think he's gonna take the RBC? We have some familiar names down here that's nipping at the heels, and Scotty Scheffler being one of them. I know Scotty's 10th place right now going into the third round, but he's only he's shooting minus. He's -8, so he's 3 back.
3 back.
3 back from the lead. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I think golf is always about, even for us as well as professionals, it's all in your head. And I think even though he didn't really get to compete for the green jacket realistically on Sunday, I mean, he has to feel good about that, right? Like coming out of the Masters as a top 3. And it's not like he doesn't know how to win these tournaments. I mean, he already has 2 majors. So I think, if he can just get all of the things together, mostly just in his head. I mean, he's a phenomenal iron player. So just, sometimes like it's just like the teams trying to like go into a 3-point shooting with the Warriors. Like, I think he sometimes gets caught up with, when you watch guys like Scheffler and DeChambeau just driving a shit ton, you just kind of like second guess yourself. Oh, is that where I should be focusing on, right? But and I'm sure he could like really drive far too, like, but like that's not where his strength is. So like, it's like you can't go into a 3-point shooting battle with Steph Curry, right? Like you gotta beat him some other ways. So I think if he can continue to just employ that strategy, yeah, I mean, he'll probably have a good tournament, and hopefully, a lot of momentum going into US Open at Pinehurst.
Yeah. So, you got Morikawa here at -11. I think he's going to win it. He's tied for the lead, and he's plus 450 right now for his odds. I think those odds are provided by BetMGM. So if you're a big BetMGM person, please go and patron them, and hopefully we can get them to cut the check for us too. But anyway, RBC Heritage in progress in the third round. Be on the lookout for Morikawa. I think Scotty's going to still make some noise, and hats off to Scotty for being able to turn in a performance after winning the Masters and still being that close to the lead. So, all right, so we're gonna kick it over to Naveen here. UFC recap, man. So much action going down with UFC 300 last week. What an exciting show that Dana White put on for us. Huge card, as always. UFC and the TKO brand at large never disappoints. Our Scoring the Circle podcast, man, that was a great precursor or foreshadowing of what was to come in UFC 300. So shout out to Naveen and Chase for putting that out for our listeners. I really enjoyed it. I think it was one of our best shows of Squaring the Circle that we've had. Yeah, Naveen, I'm gonna let you take it. Kind of give us a recap. What was your biggest takeaways, and what really moved the needle for you on UFC 300?
Okay, first off, we'll talk about the magnitude of the card. There were 12 former champions on a card. On average, if you're looking at a card, there might not even be one champion. So that's how big of a deal Data made 300.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about 9 fights on our Squaring the Circle UFC preview. We went 8-1 on those picks, and those were all exciting fights, and all of those had former champions and upcoming stars. I think he does a really good job of marketing. His social media is really, really on top compared to other fight sports. You might not know a very good boxing fight is happening, and you always know when the UFC is happening. So I think that's a bit of a difference there. Fight wise, I'll talk through some of the more interesting ones for me. Starting off, Davison Figueroa versus Corey Garbrandt. That was a pretty interesting fight, and I love submissions, so that ended on a rear naked choke, so that was pretty cool to see. And just like, I won't go through every fight, but lot of underdogs coming through. Yuri Prohaska versus Rakic was crazy. He was down most of the fight, and then with someone that heavy, he just kind of pummeled his way through being down on the points and got a TKO from ground and pound. Always interesting to see. What was interesting about this card is we had submissions. We had very few kind of fights go to the decision. So the judges and the Illuminati wasn't really a factor.
Yes. That was one thing I liked the most about it too. We didn't put it in the hands of the judges to fuck it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think UFC has that crazy of Illuminati judges compared to boxing, but it's always nice to have a clear and fair winner, and we saw that
undisputed.
For most of the cards. So that was nice to see. But I do want to talk about the fight of the night, which is Gaethje versus Holloway. Max Holloway won the BMF title, baddest motherfucker title. It's just a completely invented by Dana White and Masvidal kind of creation. That's also why it's cool. Like it can travel across weight classes. It's just who does the fans think, or who does Dana think are the best fighters there? Gaethje immediately broken nose first round, but somehow made it to the fifth round. Max up basically 5-0, points to the ground and says, "Yo, this is the BMF. I'm gonna let you swing on me instead of playing it soft." And then we saw probably the greatest knockout in UFC history with 1 second left, overhand right, slept Gaethje. Really amazing. I think if you wanted to make a highlight tape of UFC, that might be the history of UFC. That might be the last punch you'll see. So that just sets it up. Amazing fight. Just a lot of warrior spirit. And then speaking of warriors, we saw that Pereira is a robot warrior. He took a nut punch, waved off Herb Dean. The ref is like, "No, don't stop it. I'm just going to knock this motherfucker out right now." And that's what he did. So I think excitement wise, it was peaked. I watched for 7.5 hours in a row. I might have taken 30-minute break of some undercards, but basically from 9 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. there was nothing better you could have watched on TV at all. So those are my thoughts. I want to get your guys' thoughts though. I mean, you guys might be casuals for MMA. What was it fun watching? Did you see anything crazy?
Yeah, man, it was the knockout for me, man, with 1 second left. I think that was the crescendo of UFC 300 for me. It was a great
it's
card.
like a buzzer beater, right? That's
absolutely. Yeah, so I really like how you broke that down, illustrated that, man. Really captured my sentiments on that. But as far as if you're running a UFC promo, yeah, that definitely needs to be the bookend of your video. There is that knockout punch. So TKO,
I'm sure,
man.
Many people lost money on that too. If you think about it, if you
absolutely.
had a go to decision type of shit, and then 1 second left,
Well, and I think about, in perspective of TKO, the brand, right? UFC and TKO have kind of subsumed the WWE from Vince McMahon and Titan Sports. So, if you look at the last 2 weekends, you've had WrestleMania 40 and then UFC 300 the following weekend. So TKO has been, bringing out all the heavy stops in combat sports and entertainment. And I think they've done really well with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Dana White putting on 2 spectacular events, to say the least. Andrew, you got any thoughts on UFC 300?
No, I just thought, you pretty much nailed it. I think you guys nailed it. The last second knockout, pretty spectacular. Also, just kind of even for someone like me, a casual, when you look at the card, it's wow, there's like 4 fights or so that could have been like a main event on any given day, right? So obviously they went all in with the the 300th edition of it, and I thought, like one thing you gotta give credit for UFC over any of these like boxing promoters like Top Rank or DAZN is that they know how to put together a product, they know how to hype it up, and they deliver on the on the results, viewership. So big props to Dana White. Always puts out the bangers.
All right, guys. So we're going to switch gears, get on our Tennessee portion of the show here. BaseVols update. Tennessee went up to the coal mines last night. Unfortunately, we got fleeced a little bit. Got taken down by the Wildcats in a top 5 national ranking matchup between Tennessee and Kentucky. And Tennessee led for the majority of the game. And then just kind of let up down the stretch. I thought, I was talking about it last week. I'd hope maybe we'd shook the bugaboo of the Friday night meltdowns. And yeah, man, I think last week might have been more of an aberration than a trend in Tennessee. Blows another Friday night game, the open series. Kentucky's not a bad baseball team, fellas. As much as I like to pile on and talk about how much I think that Kentucky sucks at just existing, they really did a good job of answering Tennessee there at the end of the game, down the stretch, and put up some runs and beat Tennessee 5-3 final last night. Tennessee, I think, will take this game today on Saturday, and then tomorrow's game I think it's kind of a toss up, but I really don't have a good feel on Tennessee's chances to win the series. I just think there's a polar opposite matchup here between the two teams, where you have more of an offensive-minded team with Tennessee and more of a pitching and defensive-minded team in Kentucky. And all the baseball purists out there know, especially if you're playing in a park like Kentucky's. And ballparks do make a difference. It's not hitter friendly. It's more pitcher friendly. It's got a big yard out there to get over the fence. So if you have all those things working against you and you're an offensive minded team, kind of like Tennessee is, I think it favors Kentucky. So as much as it pains me to say, I think Tennessee's going to lose the series. We'll win today, but I think we'll lose tomorrow. And a lot of that has to do with who's going to be pitching today. But yeah, man, might be the first time that we lose an SEC series in quite a while. It's been a while since we've lost one. So, but we got the home stretch coming down. We got a midweek game against Lipscomb this week, and then we get into Missouri at home, and then I think we have a rematch with Florida down the stretch. We take on Vanderbilt to close out the season. So we got a lot of good games still coming up, and I like our chances in all of those. Andy, you got any thoughts on Tennessee moving forward in their baseball season?
I just continue to see the mentions that they're all like all out offense, right? Like the number one in like runs scored, tied for most home runs. So I guess, like you said, in a pitcher friendly setup and against a top 5 team, hard to say if the offense shows up. I mean, generally speaking, like the rule of thumb for any sport, usually people say defense travels, and offense is just kind of like unpredictable. But that being said, I'm excited. Like I feel like the last few years that we've known, the team to be was more of a pitcher oriented, and it just like sometimes that those things kind of like unfortunately doesn't work out. Similar to like a Rick Barnes defensive teams. You go into the drought and it's just like so frustrating. So just exciting to see that change of the team sort of building principle. And the recruiting, and yeah, just excited to see. Hopefully they can make it to Omaha.
Yeah. Now, I told you last week, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to make a deep run. And I think I'd be shocked if Tennessee didn't make it to Omaha. We'll get some things figured out. Tony Vitello does a great job of, managing the team's pitching, and then just the roster kind of set up from the batting, like who's going to be in the lineup where, and he does a really good job adjusting that throughout the season. And then when we get into late May, it's like we're firing on all cylinders by the time that part of the season rolls around. And I predict that to continue this year. So again, for our College World Series appearance chances, I give us a good high prediction on making that, and probably hosting a super regional too. So, but
Josh,
anyway,
can you go through what are the steps to making it to Omaha? Like, what do you have to do? Like regular season and then a regional, and then
So how the regionals are kind of set up is like the NCAA. They kind of do it like all their other tournaments. They'll seed people based on how you finish in your conference. Obviously, if you win your conference or you're, I think, top 2 or 3 finishing team, and it's kind of geographically driven. But if you're one of the top teams in your conference, typically you get to host a regional, and then you'll go to whoever wins that regional, the highest seeded team out of that regional that wins, then they host potentially the super regional. Now, if you're a number 2 seed, right, in your regional, and let's say you're Southern Miss, for example, but the number 1 seeded team in a region, let's say it's Vanderbilt, right? The super regional will then go to that 1 seed of Vanderbilt. So whoever is in that super region area, whoever the highest seeded team is that wins their region, will then host the super regionals.
okay.
There are some weird kind of nuanced things that I'm not super up to date on. There are some things with like Tennessee even ran into it last year. I bring up Southern Miss. We beat Clemson, but we were tied as the same seed line as Southern Miss was in their region, but their stadium held more people than Tennessee's. So the NCAA decided to make the super regional in Mississippi instead of Knoxville. And then and I know this has been in the works for a while, but I don't believe in coincidences that much. Lindsey Nelson went through a huge renovation during the off season, and they finished it literally like the day prior to opening day for the college baseball season this year. Lindsey Nelson being Tennessee's baseball park. So we added a bunch of seats along in the outfield and on the baselines to make sure to circumvent, I think, the potential for us to have to travel to a shithole like Hattiesburg, Mississippi in the future, and not be able to host a super regional in a civilized, part of the world like Knoxville with running water, internet, electricity, all those things that you would typically get in a civilized part of the country, unlike Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So that in a nutshell, I think is basically how you could frame how the NCAA runs the lead up to the College World Series with the regionals and the super regionals. And I hope that answered your question. That give you a better understanding there, to me.
Yeah. Thank you,
man. Yeah. So let's move on to the spring game highlights. Obviously, spring games suck. We all know that. There's not a lot that really comes out of them, at least for me personally, that I really take away as a quote unquote super fan of college football. But I will say there were some names that I told you to kind of be on the lookout for, and they flashed, man. And I want to get Naveen to kind of chime in on my boy Mike Matthews here. I'm really excited about him. And, we saw all the highlights from the spring game that was kind of sprinkled around X and all Facebook, all the social media platforms. But Naveen, who did you see outside of Mike Matthews that kind of made you excited about some key playmakers for Tennessee moving into the regular season?
I mean, the main thing for me was I wanted to watch Nico, and I thought Nico really played well. He's a dynamic player. Obviously, he's going up against first-team defense of Tennessee. That should be, enough of a proxy for, an SEC game. Obviously,
Tennessee's defensive line's rated as probably the best in the country this year.
Yeah, and really had that escapability. It looks like a nice touch pass most of the time, comparing back to Joe. Joe throws a 40-yard pass, 10 yards. So basically, he's just man. That was a frustrating thing going from Hendon, who had the nice pretty ball, to Joe, which is like Randy Johnson fastball every time. And now back to Nico. I think we're seeing more of a Hendon Hooker type of pass, so that's good. And yeah, Mike Matthews. That's what a 5-star looks like, right? He casually jogs and beats the quarterback. Just imagine what he can do at full speed. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. So Andy, did you see anything step up for you?
I watched it for like half an hour or so. I didn't watch the full thing. Was more sort of juggling the Masters and some of the others. But yeah, I thought that again, it's just like so refreshing to see a quarterback that actually like can make a decision and execute. Because I feel like Joe Milton, it just seems like he has the tools, but his decision making is like very slow. And at times, as big as he is, like with that frame, like I would just sit there and think like, okay, like your first read is not there, your second read is not there. I mean, like, can you like take off with it, right? Like at least like you got a big body, like you're like a Anthony Richardson, Josh Allen size. Like just go, truck through some of these safeties and shit. And he just was very frustrating. Like no matter what he does, he was always like slow with the decision making. So I thought it was just refreshing to see Nico. Like he has a quick read. He's able to get rid of the ball, and when he wants to run with it, he's also very like swifty. So I thought that was a nice takeaway. Just again, like you said, it's it was kind of nice to have someone like Hendon Hooker, and then we went to Joe Milton and tanked the season. So finally, again, excited to be back with the a capable quarterback, and like a 5-star quarterback. Haven't had that luxury in a long time. So, and it shows why he's a 5-star.
Yeah. I will say for me too, Jake Merklinger, I think he cemented himself as a very formidable backup. And Gaston Moore also played really well. So I think Tennessee establishing some depth there, quarterback, is really important. Jake Merklinger, he's a 4-star kid. He, true freshman quarterback. He's not a slouch. So there will be a lot of competition there in the quarterback room. I mean, we all know the $8 million man is going to be our starter. Nico, I think, is as advertised so far. We'll see when the lights come on, especially that trip that we all on this podcast have circled to Norman, Oklahoma. We'll definitely see Nico put to the test there. But so far, he's as advertised. I'll also say Chris Brazel, the Tulane transfer. I mean, that kid had 78 yards and a touchdown from Jake Merklinger while they were in the game together. So my man Chris lighting it up, from the transfer portal, the Green Wave sending us up a good receiver to kind of complement Mike Matthews. So, I mean, you look at Tennessee, their depth at wide receiver, you got Squirrel White, you got Brew McCoy, you got, Chris Brazel, you got Mike Matthews, and who's the kid, Thornton, right? Yeah, the kid from Oregon that transferred that hurt his leg. Dante Thornton that hurt his leg in the Missouri game last year. He's back almost 100%. So you look at it, what Josh Heupel has as far as offensive weapons for Nico, and I think the only thing that we're really missing on the offensive side of the ball is a little bit more depth at running back. I know that we were in the transfer portal, kind of looking around at some guys. I think the running back from Oregon State, he was thinking about coming here, but I think he was almost like 2 first team for us, and I think that could have shaken the boat a little bit for the guys that have been here for a while. So I think we're kind of looking more for a guy that can come in, get maybe 8 to 10 carries a game, kind of complement Dylan Sampson, who's going to be our showcased back coming into next year. So really excited about him. Dylan Sampson is like a reincarnation of Alvin Kamara. And it's funny that they both wear the same number. And, Dylan, big Kamara fan. He's from Baton Rouge. So a lot of parallels there.
I can recycle my
you can recycle
the jerseys with the number 6. It's amazing.
That's right. But yeah, man, I'd have to give a big shout out also to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive line played really good. We know that the spring game is really vanilla, so it's hard to elicit a lot of reaction from it. But everything that we've been hearing in the offseason kind of came to fruition in a lot of ways with some of the key positions that we wanted to see. So yeah, excited about that. So we'll kind of switch gears here since we did talk about transfer portal. Man, college basketball, I think it's more affected by the transfer portal than college football is, because college football is such an institution in and of itself. It can almost survive anything. I know there's been some talks about the super conference. I don't know if you guys saw that earlier in the week about like a 64 team super conference that they were going to think about making. But anyway, back to the transfer portal, it's really hard. I think on college basketball right now, with all the things that, especially the month of April, brings to a team, especially like Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee was playing in the NCAA tournament 3 weeks ago. Here they are with just a very loose, remnants of what was that team that went on an Elite Eight run. Only got like 4 of those guys coming back. So, obviously, Zakai Ziegler is the identity of the team. He's going to be your big time star. But the elephant in the room is Jonas Adu. The way that he transferred out, and he's potentially, I don't know if you guys are tracking this or not, going to Kentucky.
Oh.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude, it was catching a lot of steam Thursday night, and I hopped on there yesterday and seen it too on Friday morning. But it looks like Jonas is in deep talks with the Pope. Left the deacon, and he's talking to the Pope to try to figure out if he's going to be hanging out in the coal mines. But the situation is, I don't think Kentucky has enough NIL money to give him that he was making at Tennessee. I think he's going to take a pay cut, and he's kind of having some remorse of hitting the transfer portal. But let me get your thoughts, Roman. I know you're a big loyal guy when it comes to your sports teams. One day you're wearing a Michigan shirt, and the next day it's a Longhorn shirt. So I think you would be good to give a lot of expert analysis when it comes to loyalty to programs. So what are your thoughts about Tennessee's starting big man, Jonas Adu, potentially transferring to Kentucky? Mind you, this guy's not a slouch. He did kind of disappear in some big games, and we've talked about it. Me and you, we've done some reaction shows together and talked about where he went missing in big key moments. And then also, he had some good games. I mean, the guy was second team All SEC. He's not a slouch. He's a good rim protector. Not great at scoring with his back to the basket though, which that was a big indictment on him and a big problem. So, what are your thoughts about Benedict Adu going to Kentucky potentially?
I mean, that's I guess that's the new normal, right? When college, just any college program, and I think explains also a little bit of the reshuffling on the coaching end, because now I think you need a different mentality how to maintain and build a program when these kinds of things can happen to you. But I think. I don't know like what decisions he's making. And look, a lot of the times, perhaps now with even more money involved, we don't even know who's making these decisions necessarily, right? Like what type of agents, marketing guys, some uncle climbing out of the coal mine and just coming in there like, hey, remember when we were throwing ball when you were 5 years old? I taught you this shit, why don't you come play for Kentucky? Like we don't know, we don't really know like what decisions these players make, right? At least in the professional sports, decisions are always like it's very clear, like there's very few controversial like moves that players make. They either make outright stupid moves for wrong reasons, but we know what those are, or they make the money moves, or they make the championship moves. In college, I think it's a little more nuanced, and now it's also a lot behind the shadows of what's actually going on with the I'd say like the marketing angle of the whole thing.
I would say, to your point there, about the uncle or the family member trying to apply pressure. I think that's why Tobe Awaka entered the transfer portal. I mean, he's from Hyde Park, New York. There's been some rumors that he could be going to St. John's potentially. Agent had reached out. Well, I'd say agent. I mean, to me, that's what they are, but, loosely using that word, just kind of from the collective or from the school of St. John's kind of saying, hey, I think we can get Tobe Awaka some money, get you guys some kickback or whatever. Yeah. But now that Adu is out too, there's been some buyers remorse on Awaka's part on hitting the transfer portal, because Rick Barnes talked about it midweek that they've still been in contact with Tobe, and I think there might be a strong chance that he may come back still. But it all depends. And I think the longer that it goes, the less likely he is to come back, because at some point Tennessee's got to make a decision, right? On getting some post players out of the portal. They just can't wait around on some primos that are like, oh, I don't know, maybe I can get more money here or more money there. And again, that's the vicious cycle of the NIL.
I mean, maybe the schools now, like, perhaps, it's like unintended consequences, right? I think we knew that there's going to be, some changes, some complications, but now we're seeing it really unravel, right? And I think maybe over the next couple seasons, schools have to really invest resources in like professional, like sports management, right? Like have actual, people there in the front office dealing with this.
I think we got to start doing contracts, man.
Or contract, or right, because like now you can definitely sign a contract now, or perhaps NCAA will come up with some rules around like can you tag a player with some franchise tag or something else, or it could be like, okay, like we'll tag you, you can leave, but then you can't play for like, I don't know, a season, there could be rules around it to help teams manage the situation, or it just goes to free for all, right? And then I think we'll see how that plays out eventually. But I think you have to go on the offense, right? And I would definitely be ruthless about it, right? If I'm the coach or if I'm the front office, and just see like what I can do for myself, right? Maybe I think the coaches feel that there's some that they're kind of entitled to, not entitled, but maybe they feel like there is some sense of loyalty, to the coach, to the program by these players, right? Which, because they're in college and they feel some camaraderie, et cetera, et cetera. But, maybe you get that out of your head as the head coach, as the program, and assume that these players are just all free agents, right? forget about the whole thing. You're just trying to win for the school. And if you need to take some, coal miners from Kentucky into your team, do it, right? Because that goes both ways, right? Like
all the old Kentucky players are going to Arkansas,
right? But like, would you, for example, like we I think.
But I get what you're saying.
Old school rivalries, right? Like you couldn't sometimes see, I don't know, like Boston player go to LA, like you'd be like, well, that's weird, right? But here, why not? Like take players from your rival, just take them from there. Go recruit their guys to come to you, right? Oh, you took our guy. Well, guess what? 3 more mil to your guy, and then show this kind of kid a lesson, right? Be like, oh, you went there thinking they have star players. Good luck. I took them back here, right? So maybe that's the way to play this game. Go on the offense and just get the most for yourself.
Andy, your thoughts? Kind of. I want to get your thoughts to kind of build upon what Roman was saying. And I've kind of been beating the drum since this whole thing took off. Our podcast and the NIL transfer portal saga that's been unfolding in front of us, but. With the culture, man, like how does a team build, or how does a head coach build culture when you legitimately don't have guys sticking around for more than 1 year because they're all out here, switching teams like they do underwear?
Well, and you guys know I've been very supportive of the whole transfer portal and NIL. Like if these coaches can fucking bounce and chase the bag, why should the player be committed to the program when the coach who recruited you and had a vision for you, is leaving? So I think, as much as it sucks that now that we're in this position, I'm still supportive of the transfer portal and the NIL. I mean, you guys saw how Caitlin Clark, the biggest college female basketball star ever so far, gets drafted, and her salary is gonna be like $75K. I mean, she's gonna have Nike shoe deal, but just think about that, right? Like you are the best in the world, and what you've done, you've spent countless hours for years perfecting your craft, and you're only gonna make $75K. I mean, obviously, like the men's side is very different because the NBA has way bigger pot of the revenue, and if you're drafted in the first round, you're starting out making millions. But realistically, like not a lot of guys have the chance at the NBA. So hey, like if you wanna chase the bag, I have no problem with that. You should always go get the bag. Now, as for how can coaches build teams, I mean, that's a tough question, but there are coaches who utilize the one and done players and win championships, right? Like Calipari's done it once.
That's over, man. One and done, winning championships, that's long gone, man. That's why Calipari's not at Kentucky anymore.
Right. But again, like it's not like people haven't been able to do that before, right? Like there were there were players that come and go, declare right after their freshman year. I mean, it's gonna be up to the coaches. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an even playing field. Well, not necessarily even, because some schools have more money to offer. But at the end of the day, like any like single program isn't just suffering from it. Like everybody's suffering from it, right? Even blue bloods like Kentucky has to worry about it. Even players from Duke are transferring out. So hey, like if that's the way it's gonna be, it's the way it's gonna be. Like just looking at how much money that college sports make off of these students' shoulders and backs. If a student athlete wants to go somewhere because they're giving $800,000 more, I can't really blame them, right? Like who knows like where they're gonna make money after they graduate? Like are they and these players aren't good enough to make it to the NBA, so likely just gonna circle around some like Turkish league or Chinese league or somewhere, and it's gonna be like bouncing from team to team, league to league. So hey, like why not make a comfortable living now? Make sure that you can provide for your family, take care of your mom.
Sure. No, I mean, I hear you. Naveen, if you were college basketball or even just the czar of the NCAA, what would be some of the things that you would implement to kind of remedy the hopping around of team to team, or would you limit it? I'd just like to get your thoughts on that. How would you try to put some type of regulations on the chaos that we're seeing in the transfer portal with players?
I think that first off, I would do a couple more years of unregulated, just to try to test the waters and see how this goes. I think that, if you start putting in rules like, for example, like making players sit out when they transfer, you cut short some careers kind of unjustly, unfairly. I think this is great for mid-major kind of breakout stars, right? We had one, Dalton Connect. How many people knew who Dalton Connect was 8 months ago, right? I'd say Josh, you maybe
like I knew we were recruiting him, but I didn't know he was going to turn into what he was,
right?
By any stretch of the imagination.
So it's a balance between giving someone an opportunity and testing someone's loyalty, right? So I think that when you have an opportunity, as Andy said, to create some financial stability for yourself, you have to take it in America. And that's really what America is about, right? Like, oh man, I'm not stuck to this job like I would be in Japan for 30 years. And I got to wait for my boss's boss to basically die to advance. We have free market, we have capitalism, right? And this is kind of the result of that, right? Like you give people options to advance themselves, and you should take those options as much as you can. Maybe you can, set up contracts as a school and as a fan base to understand who the players are. I think this impacts the fans mostly, right? Because every 6 months you got to learn the new players now, right? You don't know. Okay, Christian Leitner is going to start for the next couple years.
That's a good point. Yeah,
right. It impacts fans more than anybody, right? So that side, I think, needs to be set up. Maybe you can have a limit on the number of transfers you can accept per roster season. That's something that I would consider. But yeah, Roman brought up a cool point. Like, what if there was like a loan system with an option to buy back the player? Like, let's say this year, right? JP Estrella, right? He's not getting many minutes. Okay, go down to Sunbelt, have some fun.
UNC Asheville or wherever. Yeah.
We'll get some playing time, and then after 1 year, we have the option to buy you back. Yeah, I think that type of thing is good. That's how they do it in soccer, and I think that's a really good system. But overall, like, I think we need to let this go for a couple more seasons unregulated to find the answer for what the right rules are.
Yeah.
I mean, you can solve most of the money can solve most problems, right? So you can design like a system of monetary incentives where you could potentially like
salary caps,
or you could do like incentive bonuses, right? If you like kind of like what happens in the corporate world, right? Like where you have your your equity, right? Maybe you give players equity too, right? Like that's the thing that I think the sports world is just missing in general, is giving players equity in the team's money pot, right? Very directly in terms of like, hey, like you stay here long enough, we win games, we make more money through whatever it is, you get to benefit from that, right? So you get your salary, but then you add some kind of like incentives and bonuses that don't cash until something happens, right? And you can create like a deferred payment, right, too, where you can go over, let's say like you do salary caps, right? But then you say, okay, if I recruited this guy out of high school, right, I put a franchise tag on him, now I'm allowed to pay him 2x or 3x in year 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So then he can go, right?
That's what some of the collectives have already done, like. Yeah. Like they've even tapped, like you look at Nico. I think Tennessee's NIL collective has the ability to even collect off future earnings of Nico from even when he gets drafted after like his NFL salary.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, so interesting thing. I think there are interesting things you can like come up with. But yeah, I agree with Naveen. I think you gotta see what it looks like, because you don't want like unintended consequences. Like you don't want to make a regulation or a rule that ends up screwing you over, right? So right now you have to see how the players are, what schools are like kind of doing, let the dust settle, and then I think we'll see more type of structure there. And again, I think the other big part about it is like the coach's mentality. If you have a 60, 70-year-old coach that knows like Saban, whatever, right? Like just knows how to recruit players by doing a fucking chicken dance at their Thanksgiving dinner, right? Like they're not gonna sit there like Moneyball style in front of. That's what the movie was about, right? They're not gonna sit there in front of a fucking spreadsheet talking about like, if we move 100K over here, give this guy over there, he's gonna give us 3 more fucking rebounds. Like they're not gonna understand that shit, right? So you're probably gonna see maybe a resurgence or at least an influx of kind of like professional sports management, financially minded people that are going to come into these teams and try to create a system for the coaches and for the teams to understand this type of landscape. And so we might see more departures, right? More Caliparis being done. Like all these things might be happening, and we might see a resurgence of new coaches. We might see non-basketball coaches come in, right? Like you might just see like.
Nate Oates. As much as I hate Nate Oates, he's probably a good example of that. He did coach basketball, but it was more of his acumen of being a math teacher, right?
Exactly.
And just playing averages and percentages, right?
So, I see guys from Wall Street, I don't know if we get to talk to the phone, but like Toto Wolff, right? Like finance guy, right? Comes into Mercedes, right? And just fucking numbers and data. All the way. I mean, he has experience in racing, but then creates this like incredible, decade run for them. So, I can see, and man, real winners, Harvard and sports management MBA, Columbia sports management MBA. I guarantee you applications are fucking through the roof, because everyone is going to want to go and do that. And
everybody needs a analytics guy, right?
Yeah, analytics guy, money guy. Now you can go out there and like tell all these players, hey, I'll get you a nice deal at St. John's for 1 year. You're the star. You get screen time. You get the money. And then I'm going to put you back on like a proper program where you actually compete for a championship. Like somebody's going to come there and do all that stuff. So
sure.
Wins above replacement weighted for NIL dollars. Right?
Yeah. Oh, dude, excellent. Wins above replacement weighted against NIL dollars. There we go.
That's a new metric for you guys. I think that's going to come out.
Well, hey, I think we should probably start our own NIL collective, man. Start signing some kids to the Locky Top Sports NIL collective.
Oh, dude, wait till we get like a collective bargaining agreement or some shit, bro, in college sports.
Dude, that'll be if the NCAA is still in charge, it'll be like 20 years before that ever happens, man. Like it's it's so slow with those guys.
Dude,
they're still trying to sue everybody, right now. So.
What if we get because the college basketball, man, you just need a basketball court, right? We might get these community colleges just gang up in there, put together a nice big pot, and just create like a live PGA Tour alternative. You go to community college, right?
Yeah,
and just like get real paid to play at fucking, whatever.
The NAIA versus the NCAA. Yeah, that'd be cool.
I mean, I think Roman, you brought up a great point. Like the league is definitely shifting towards more, analytics or the value calculation, and we see that a lot in baseball, right? Like Andrew Friedman started his career at like Bear Stearns. He's like a president of Dodgers now. Matthew Silverman, I think, Goldman Sachs investment banker, ended up with the Tampa Bay Rays. So like these a lot of like finance, sort of oriented and numbers minded people are running like sports game, and before we know it, we're gonna see that at the college level too, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Once
the NILs, like there, because right, like you have to think like you brought up an excellent point. Like, how do I know that I'm optimizing my team? Say like Tennessee's paying Nico $8 million, but maybe we could have had him for a 7.5, and by giving that $500K to like a this like big O-line guy, maybe that's the better way to use your money instead of going all in on the quarterback. Maybe we get a 4-star quarterback for $4 million, and then pay $2 million each to 2 stud NFL talent O-line, and that's gonna make him look great, like Carson Beck. So, there's gotta be some calculation coming on in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah, it ain't your daddy's college sports no more.
Football no more.
It ain't your daddy's college sports no more, dude.
And it ain't even ours anymore, man. It
ain't even ours, dude.
These mid to late 30s. We're like, what's going on? We can't. It's almost like can't wrap our mind around it.
Back in my day.
Exactly.
I mean, now it's. We'll see. I mean, yeah, but I agree. We had examples of this. I mean, the Golden State Warriors, right? For one, just catch fucking VC guys, put a team together. It's gonna happen now. Now that the money is there, we'll see all of it. So exciting times ahead. Hard to predict, but just have to live with in the new world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up the Golden State Warriors, and they will be missing the NBA playoffs. So. We got our resident NBA expert, Andrew Kim, here with us today. I want him to kind of walk us through NBA playoff picture and give us his rub on, man, who's going to be lifting. Let's just cut to the chase, man. Who do you think is going to lift? And what do you think about this new play-in game situation when it comes to the playoffs? And then you can kick it to Naveen after that because, I know he's got some good commentary for this as well.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I feel like it's it's getting harder and harder to predict like playoff results because in the regular season they don't really ever go full strength with the load management culture and all that. So it's really hard to tell. But that being said, I think obviously like until proven otherwise, I think Jokic and Jamal Murray are the duo to beat. And as far as like the playoff picture looks, I thought the play-ins were always like a lot of people initially didn't like the idea, but I look at it as no different than the wild cards rounds for NFL or even like baseball. And, we're just now catching on. Like, if you don't want to play in the play-in, like, do better in the regular season, win more games, and, you clutch 6th or better seed. You don't have to worry about getting eliminated like Golden State Warriors, right? So I think that's fantastic. Like, it's going to get more exciting. I think it adds some meaning to the regular season games now, finally, that like we all agree 82-game season is way too long. And, that's why it produces a lot of these like meaningless regular season games where like people like Kawhi Leonard, they just sit out. So I think play-in overall is, it's definitely a moneymaker for Adam Silver. I feel like he's done a good job. It's hard to follow Stern just because he really expanded NBA to where it is now globally and the revenue skyrocketing. But that being said, play-in, I think, is a fantastic idea. It will be exciting. I think I'll have a better idea after the first rounds. Just kind of seeing how these teams actually play in the playoff mode versus like, how do they look in the regular season? I feel like it's getting harder and harder to tell. Like, you have the teams like Celtics just won a shit ton of regular season games, but until proven otherwise, I think they're no different than the James Harden Rockets. Like, until you win something, don't talk to me. So we'll see. Same for the like Timberwolves or OKC Thunder, right? Like,
good segue. Good segue there, Andrew. T-Wolves, baby. Let's go, Soda. Let's hear it, man. Naveen, I got to get your take on the playoff picture. I'm rooting for your T-Wolves, man. Let's get it done in 2024, bro. Let's go. Own the West.
I hope so. But using my brain, I think just because we finished as a lower seed than Denver, we're never going to make the finals because we have to fucking go travel to Elevation to win, 2 games basically away at 6,000 feet in the air.
That was some professional level cucking by those lower seeded teams to sit out players to make sure that you guys had to go instead of them.
Yeah, I mean, we had the opportunity to also seal our own destiny. We lost to Suns. Suns.
I just wanted to hear it. I want to hear you say it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very matter of fact about this. There's a huge chance that we lose to Suns again because, again, they got ISO players that can win games, right? They have 3 of them. They have Beal, they have Devin Booker, and they got KD, right? I think we do have defensive matchups for them. It's just going to be, how do we play on offense, right? Is our transition smooth? Do we make easy baskets, or do we fall into the trap of seeing them play ISO and then trying to play ISO? That's not how we're going to win. We're going to win through defense and transition and just letting, feeding Edwards and letting him go off. So that's our path to victory. But ultimately, I think Denver's going to win. In the East, I think it's a little bit more interesting. We got we got? Miami is playing Celtics.
Boston,
No Jimmy Butler, but I mean that's
RIP the knee. RIP the knee for Jimmy.
Yeah, that's always an interesting matchup. I'm going to talk about this a little bit in my best bets segment, but give me the Magic versus the Cavs. Nothing really convincing from Cavs to tell me like, oh, they're going to dominate, etc. So I think that's an interesting matchup as well that we'll see. And obviously, what's ESPN pushing down your throat? Mavs are going to beat the Clippers. So I kind of tend to agree, but I hate agreeing with ESPN, so I might have to fade myself there. So, Josh, what are your thoughts? Like, who's gonna take it all?
Man, I really like your Timberwolves, man. I'm rooting for them as hard as I can. I know Denver, the road to the finals is going to go through there, but if you go ahead and just knock it out, I think that it's probably better that you guys get that out of the way early, Yeah. But I'm really big on Timberwolves, man. I think they've got what it takes to get it done. Eastern Conference, man, it's just always a toss-up because there's just so much parity, I think, in the Eastern Conference.
Like I said,
yeah, they're all shit, and it's just like who's gonna be, it's like the Hunger Games in the East, right? It's like who's gonna be giving up his tribute as the exhibition game in the NBA Finals for whoever the champion of the West is to win. So, yeah, man, give me T-Wolves, bro. I think they're going to lift, and you're gonna see it for the first time in your life, Naveen. I'm calling my shot now, man. Like Babe Ruth. Let's go.
Roman, what are your thoughts, man, on playoffs?
I mean, it's we have no super team unless you count the Nuggets, which may be the only one. I'm not sure about the Suns. They could get lucky here in this, but I find the road for them to be tough. I think the Mavs are really good this year. So there's I think the West is a bit stronger overall. So, but with I think Nuggets being the only clear answer. But we got I think it's an interesting year for NBA. So I think maybe this is the one one in the last 5 years. When you want to tune in and actually watch anything. I would say a lot of these are going to go to Game 7. A lot of these are going to be, Game 6 and so on. I would generally just take a perspective of there are teams here that are in the playoffs that haven't been in the playoffs for years. I mean, or just barely snuck in there. I don't know if it's again the function of having the play-in or other things, but Magic, Cavs, Knicks, Pacers. I mean, when have those teams actually been in a playoff and had a decent seeding? One has to really go far back in time. So I would just automatically kind of assume that these guys are gonna drop the ball on this, right? I can see Knicks just completely getting demoralized. I mean, as a 2 seed, just doing a very classic shitting the bed. Knicks in the first round, especially against the Sixers, who contrary to that haven't achieved what they wanted to achieve, but have been there consistently, year in, year out. Heat Celtics. I mean, it's tough. There's really, he can always win games and he can always be in contention.
Here we go. Here comes the fucking Heat talk.
Yeah, he talk.
Jimmy Butler's out, bro.
They win ugly, dude. No, but
yeah, they win ugly. They win ugly. That's
they win ugly. But look,
how much did you cry about the Jimmy Butler injury?
No, I don't. Honestly,
on a corner,
and honestly, like if you think about it, like Jimmy has been very interesting to have on the team because
he'll be back by the second round. You just gotta beat Boston. That's it.
Yeah, he can be back by the second round, and then also I would like for I don't see Jimmy as I don't see him as the player that has proven that he can just hero ball the entire time. We've seen him like go off for like 40 points first 3 quarters, right, and fourth quarter nothing's falling in. And we've seen Heat lose games like that last year, where they really needed somebody to step up. Like they needed like Dwayne Wade, where you can just give the guy the ball and make sure it falls in through the hoop, or you draw the foul. You just get the play. I don't really see a player like that on the Heat right now. Jimmy Butler had the potential, but playoff Jimmy is there, but very streaky. I can't just guarantee that he's going to get the ball and get the basket every time. But so maybe this is a good thing for the Heat, right? Like what I'm trying to say is that, maybe they can find some role players, some guys to step up and just go.
You're thinking the Heat's going to find a new team identity now that Jimmy's out? And
yeah,
maybe,
I think
forward in the playoffs.
And Spoelstra always does a fantastic job of that, right? Every year, some Heat guard just gets nuclear from in the playoffs, like Vincent,
everybody.
Caleb Martin.
Yeah, Caleb Martin. We got the Spanish Himi, Jaquez. So Himi's gonna, replace
Jaime.
Jaime.
Yeah. But that's a good. I think maybe this could be a good playoff picture to tune into. But my advice would be just in this case, just to look at the teams that have been historic letdowns, and this year I would just expect them to be historic letdowns once again.
Cool. Yeah, the only part I think I would disagree is the Knicks and Sixers, because I think Sixers are just fake. They choke every year. They're worse than James Harden Rockets or Chris Paul Clippers. Like Embiid Sixers is a definition of failure. So I think typical Knicks fashion, they'll advance, but then they'll flail out in the second round is my guess.
I don't know. I mean, I think, but they have experience, right? I mean, in the playoffs, I think some of the experience, it does come down to some of the experience, and it's also the coaching changes, right? Like Pacers aren't the old Pacers.
They just have experience of coming up short, so I think, that's a constant. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I do feel like I don't think Knicks are gonna make it to the finals or anything like that. But I do think there's a good chance that I mean, again, Sixers like Embiid, no different than James Harden. Once the fouls aren't called, he's gonna struggle, and he's gonna punt it. So,
what about the Lakers? What do you think on the Lakers front?
It just sucks that they're playing Denver. I feel like they're, they could have. I honestly wanted them to play the Thunder because I feel like, Lakers could just bully the Thunder inside through Anthony Davis and LeBron. Like, their guards are great, but they can't stop the size. But Denver is just tough, man. Denver is just tough. But that being said, balls round. I don't expect them to win. But I do expect that it's gonna be, close games. Like last year they got swept, but every game was either tied or within 2 points with 3 minutes to go. And then Jokic just starts going nuclear from half court throw threes that go in and shit like that. So Denver's definitely the favorite, but I think in terms of covering the spread, I like the Lakers to cover the spread. Like for example, tonight, I think they cover the +7.
Okay, well, you guys heard it there first. Sorry, for some of the viewers that are going to see this, I was having to break up an elite pillow fight that was happening downstairs. My wife's on vacation.
UFC
And,
500, Jackson.
Yeah, UFC. Yeah, UFC 500. He's coming. I had to check on JD's nose there a little bit, make sure there wasn't no separated septum or anything going on. So all's good. Everything's okay and intact. So dried some tears. Anyway, that's the life of being a dad on a Saturday. Idle minds is the devil's playground, is what they say, right? So when I'm up here doing this, they're down there, like you said, having UFC 500, jumping off the top rope. So we're gonna go to NFL draft. We'll talk about some potential Tennessee picks that are going to be coming. Some guys that you probably need to put on your radar to make some splashes in the NFL. I will go ahead and say it's not going to be Joe Milton. So Joe Milton's probably not going to be a starter in the NFL as much as the Tennessee football X account and Instagram account tries to pub him. You can put lipstick on a pig all you want, but there's really no fixing that. I know there's a coach somewhere saying, oh, man, look at that arm talent that he's got. We're going to turn him into, the next phenom here in the NFL. But, Josh Heupel thought the same thing. And, for 3 years, I know he sat behind Hendon for, the second of those 3 years here for the most part. But it was the same thing. We beat that horse to death. But some people I do want to mention, and I know you guys are familiar with some of these names. Jalen Wright, I think he's going to probably be our highest taken player out of the draft. He was a junior coming out, declared early. He was our starting running back all year last year, and big talent there. A lot of speed, a lot of elusiveness, hits the gap real well. Great field vision, just all around back. Aaron Beasley, I think he's going to get taken probably third round. One of the best linebackers, I think, in the draft this year. He played really well for Tennessee on the defensive side of the ball. Kamal Hadden, not a big Kamal Hadden guy, just personality wise. But he had a decent season going, minus getting absolutely rinsed by Florida's running back during the Florida game down in the swamp. But, outside of that, he had some decent games until he got injured. Unfortunately, cut his season short, but he's been rehabbing. So, I could see him being a late round pick. There's a defensive back. And then I think somebody's going to take a flyer on D. Williams. Great returner. He returned a lot of kicks and punts for Tennessee for touchdowns over his time there on the Hill. So I think somebody takes a flyer on D. Williams, maybe like a 6th round draft pick. But yeah, man, I think Jalen Wright's probably going to be the headliner for Tennessee. Andy, Naveen, thoughts on NFL draft just in general, and then maybe some thoughts on some of the players or players I didn't mention that kind of stick out to you for Tennessee.
I want to ask one question to you guys. There's like a core 4 of top QBs, right? You got Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, and Drake May. Which one of those 4 is going to be the best pro? I'll start with you, Andy.
Jaden Daniels.
Okay. Josh?
JJ McCarthy.
Ooh, Michigan man?
Yeah. Dude, tough to say. I mean, I like JJ, but it's tough, dude. He had a very it's tough. I would just say it's very tough because
don't put any damn stock in Jaden Daniels from winning the fucking Heisman. That trophy's been a joke for the last 30 years. It's just a coronation of a popularity contest.
Yeah, I don't.
And
think,
he had. Let me finish, please. He had a lot of good athletes around him, a lot of good receivers. So great offensive line too. So I mean, he's tough as nails. I've seen the kid get just absolutely smacked a few times, that stick out to me. I mean, I remember him taking some really big hits and still getting back up, but not very impressed. And that's not my Tennessee bias. I just don't think what he does translates well in the NFL. So McCarthy all day. He had the quarterback whisperer. He had the quarterback whisperer of Michigan as his coach. So,
like last season, it was the Michigan defense anyway, right?
No, it was the schedule.
Oh, the schedule. Yeah, exactly. Schedule and
definitely
Michigan
the schedule. Yeah,
the schedule and defense. Year before that, I mean, the running back, couple of receivers, like it's the same thing, right? Like JJ McCarthy has made like great reads, plays, and he can really like throw the ball really, really, really well. Like he can throw it off position, off balance. He can extend plays, but we've seen that in a very limited capacity against perhaps not the best teams as well. So I think there's a lot of question marks there too, right? Just the same way, because it's not that he was the reason like they won. He's not like Joe Burrow, or Tua, right? Where it's like it's just very clear this is the reason the team is winning. I think the Michigan was definitely not a quarterback. Like that team was not about the quarterback. The team was about other things. I think mostly the defense, running back, and actually like even the receiver core. So, but definitely defense and running back game. That's what won them all those key big games, and that was the big part of the what they did last year. But also I think the terms of like the size and the type of like the build and the type of player, I think they definitely have to go to JJ McCarthy. He definitely looks like more of a NFL quarterback type of person, just how he, how he stands, how he plays, how he throws. So maybe that's where you have to swing the balance his way.
Best player from this draft class, I'm going to say it now, will be Malik Huda Neighbors from LSU.
I mean, that's why Jaden Daniels threw for a bazillion yards. That guy just ran under it every single time, man. Like contested catches. Yeah, Neighbors. Like I think he should have got. Honestly, I think he probably if you pick somebody off LSU's team to win the Heisman, I think Malik Neighbors should have been the guy that went by far.
Yeah, so I think that's a good way to end the draft coverage. We'll be tweeting the draft. We'll be following around and having our reactions. So stay tuned to that online at Lucky Top Sports. So let's go into our best bets and start with Andy.
Just what I mentioned earlier. I think it's not more of a Knicks pick, more so that I think Sixers are just known playoff choker teams. So I don't really think that I don't really like buy that stock. I mean, they barely scraped by Miami after Jimmy tore his MCL. Just not seeing it. That being said, I don't think like Knicks are gonna have some crazy like Patrick Ewing days type of run, but I do think they're better than the Sixers. Lakers, I don't think they're gonna win, but I think they'll cover. Like I said, every game with Denver usually comes down to like last 3 minutes. But I can definitely see them getting keeping it close, especially if Anthony Davis is healthy and LeBron is healthy, unlike last year.
No Garden Magic for the Knicks, Andy?
I mean, like MSG is gonna get lit, and me personally, I think if they win, I'm probably gonna go check out the 7th Avenue and see if anyone starts flipping cars and shit. But but that's not like the reason why I think like Knicks are gonna win. I mean, you talk about home field advantage and all that, but at the end of the day, like it's not like college football, like NBA. It just depends on the superstars who comes to show up, and I think Knicks, getting Bronson, a very underrated guy, and on the flip side, you have Joel Embiid, who's like, basically taller James Harden. So
yeah,
cool. For me, Magic +5. I'm going hipster here with this pick. Most important thing for me is I think it's an even matchup, but Magic
Take the points.
take the points when it's even. And I think most importantly, those guys are deep and nobody's injured. And oftentimes, like that gets you a first round win. I might go Magic series as well, but give me Magic +5. I got 2 MLB overs for you guys. Mariners, Rockies over 10. Really shit pitching there. We'll see a lot of reliance on relief pitching, and I think that will be a dumpster fire. And it's in Colorado, so don't worry about the overhitting. It might hit in the 5th inning. Astros, Nats, 9.5. I believe Verlander might be pitching, or he might have pitched last night. But either way, I think we'll look for Astros to win the game, but really look for a lot of runs because it's not a great pitching performance from that side either. Josh?
Yeah, I kind of gave a spoiler earlier for my pick here. I think it's Tennessee -1. Against the Wildcats today. I don't like their chances tomorrow, but go ahead and take Tennessee for today in the second game of the series, and hopefully we or hopefully I'm proved wrong and we are able to take the series, but just don't have a good feeling about it. So, Rome, you got a best bet, big dog?
Which one of mine is on the board here? I don't even have one.
Did you want to talk maybe F1?
F1. Listen, I kept looking for. We have a Chinese Grand Prix. Look, it starts. Well, coverage will start at I think 2 a.m. I think Eastern time. I would check the time zones, but essentially it's happening overnight. So.
Do you need an offshore book to get this?
No, I'm not sure. I mean, I think Naveen's bookie has some lines, but it's supposed to kind of work similar to the way you have golf matchups. One on one. Driver versus driver, team versus team. I couldn't see that many, so everything that was offered was total garbage unless you had to take like minus 490, minus 500 lines. So maybe there is possibility to sit down and cook up a good parlay. But I would say the one thing that's to do, it's a Chinese GP. There's a Chinese driver. And I think a lot of people are going to have this stupid idea that Zhou Guanyu is going to do absolutely anything in this race. He might DNF. Dude. He's not a good driver. He's the only, this is, I guess, my hot take for the Chinese GP, right? He's in a horrible car, absolute disaster of a car, and he's a pretty bad driver. He's only in F1 for the Chinese viewership money, right? There's actually two drivers like that. I mean, you could argue that Yuki Tsunoda is kind of similar in terms of Red Bull and the contracts that Honda has with all the F1 teams, but he's at least a good driver. He scores points. Unfortunately, he's all the way in starts on the grid in 19th, so he's not going to get far. But I would fade absolutely anything Zhou Guanyu related. Verstappen, Sergio Perez are 1 and 2 on the grid. They're gonna probably win it. I mean, you can pay minus 1,400, minus 1,500 with Verstappen. I don't even know, how you would even capitalize on that unless you want to, put in Hondo K on that. But it's definitely looking like. Also, I would say with the grid the way it is. Maybe if you put a Hondo K on Max Verstappen to win this one, I think it's maybe a lock. Just because there's nothing in the grid that can threaten him. Ferraris are in 6-7. McLaren is ass. Alonso is in third in Aston Martin. They said they're rolling out upgrades. Upgrades is a funny fucking thing. Sometimes the teams will roll out upgrades over 1 2-week race period, and then the car literally fucking explodes because it's just Gran
Turismo style, huh?
Yeah, it's really very 50-50. Sometimes they'll roll out an upgrade. They're like, wow, the car is so fucking great. But, a lot of the times it just literally will the engine will shut off on the 5th lap. So, and Alonso is definitely, fading off, I think, this year. So, just signed an extension with Aston Martin, or I think they're negotiating an extension. So I think he's, just trying to make money, and he might have an easy race, not trying to crash. So it looks like Red Bull is going to take this one to finish, nice and easy. If there's a way for anybody to, bet on that somehow, go for it. Otherwise, 2 Ferraris. I wish you could take that. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, 7 and 8 on the 6 and 7 on the grid. Sainz is a much better driver. They're going to battle it out against each other. They're having another in team rivalry going on. So I would take Sainz here to actually gain positions on Leclerc. So that's another good one, I would say.
Yep. Fade the Asian guys in Asia. Quote Roman.
Tsunoda, he actually did well in Japan. He did well in Japan, but I think just Zhou Guanyu is just an really bad driver, and you can argue that they can cook up some shit for China, etc. Man, you can't really with F1, right? Unless you're literally fucking putting rocks into people's tires or some shit,
sugar in the
gas line in the paddock. What are you doing, dude? This car goes 50 miles an hour faster. This driver is you can't really do anything. It's very unfortunate. So I would say it's silly to assume that just because it's in China, he's going to do anything at all.
Cool. So it's been a great show. We covered a lot of topics. Look out for our draft coverage coming up. And thank you guys for listening. We got Andy, Josh, myself, Roman from Austin. Lock it top out.
See you guys.